An Army drill sergeant guilty on 18 counts of rape. He now faces the possibility of life in prison. More sex and marriage troubles in the Kennedy family. It could short-circuit some ambitious political plans for this generation. And the invasion of monster trucks in almost every community. Big danger on wheels, and people are beginning to fight back.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Good evening. The Army sex scandal is at a new level tonight, and it's a long way from over. Staff Sergeant Delmar Simpson from the Aberdeen, Maryland training facility has been found guilty by a military court on 42 charges. That includes 18 charges of rape. He could be in jail the rest of his life. Here's NBC's Ed Rabel.
At the sprawling Aberdeen Proving Ground in Maryland today, the most explosive sexual abuse court-martial in military history ended with sensational verdicts. Staff Sergeant Delmar Simpson standing ramrod straight as the head of the military jury pronounced one decision after the other. Guilty on 18 of 19 counts of rape. Guilty on 25 of 35 other charges of sexual misconduct.
Under the system of the Army, I expect that he perhaps have gotten justice.
All along, Simpson admitted he had sex with women under his command, but insisted it was never forced. He even pleaded guilty to consensual sex with 11 trainees, 5 of whom said he raped them.
Sir, I did not rape anyone, sir.
But the military jurors based their decisions today on the military, not the civilian legal definition of rape. Though the military defines rape as sexual intercourse executed by force and without consent of the victim, actual physical force is not required. All that's needed is something the military calls constructive force. In other words, because Simpson had complete control over his trainees, as all drill sergeants do, the Army argued he needed no weapon for his victims to feel threatened. Nor did the women have to forcibly resist or object for the jury to find Simpson guilty. The judge today ordered no one in the case could comment pending next Monday's sentencing of Simpson. But just after the jury got the case 5 days ago, Simpson's attorneys accused the trainees of lying.
It comes down to the problem that women may be disposed to make false claims if they think that it can get them out of trouble.
Simpson already faces up to 32 years in prison for the crimes he already pleaded guilty to. But that pales in comparison to the sentences he could receive on today's 18 rape convictions. Just one rape verdict made him liable for up to life behind bars. By convicting Sergeant Simpson on so many counts, the jury today most certainly meant to make an example out of him. A strong message to the rest of the Army that sexual misconduct will not be tolerated. Ed Rabel, NBC News, the Pentagon.
In Denver, where the Oklahoma City bombing trial is now moving into the major evidence phase, the prosecution continued to bore in on what it claims is the direct connection between Timothy McVeigh and this deadly terrorist attack. NBC's Roger O'Neill in Denver again tonight for us. Roger, what's the latest there?
Tom, damning evidence against Timothy McVeigh today. First from a key witness, a woman who said McVeigh told her he planned to bomb the Oklahoma City Federal Building. And second, a piece of twisted metal, which prosecutors say links McVeigh to the truck bomb that blew up the building.
Lori Fortier, a former friend, said 6 months before the bombing, McVeigh came to her home in Kingman, Arizona. She told the jury McVeigh blamed the government for murdering the people at Waco, that he wanted to take action against the government, that he was going to rent a truck and fill it with barrels of racing fuel and fertilizer, and Fortier said McVeigh told her he picked Oklahoma City because it was an easy target. Earlier in the day, the jury heard testimony that less than 3 hours after the explosion and 2 blocks from the Murrah building, an FBI agent found what looked like just another piece of debris. But against a wall of the courtroom this morning, that piece of debris was shrouded in a black cloth. Almost everyone knew what it was, the rear axle from the Ryder truck, which prosecutors say Timothy McVeigh parked in front of the federal building on April 19th. FBI agent James Elliott pointed to the spot where he found a sequence of letters and numbers, PVA 26077, which he told the jury was the beginning of a crucial trail which led to Timothy McVeigh. Weldon Kennedy, who headed the FBI investigation in Oklahoma City, told NBC News that was a lucky but critical break.
The fact that we could identify where that truck came from, who it belonged to, and ultimately where it was rented was a very key part of the initial stage of the investigation.
By late afternoon on the day of the explosion, the truck had been traced to Elliott's Body Shop in Junction City, Kansas. Robert Anderson, a Ryder truck executive, told the jury company records showed the truck had been rented by Mr. Bob Kling.
And late this afternoon, Fortier said she helped McVeigh make a phony driver's license with the name Bob Kling. Now, it must be pointed out that Fortier's testimony is part of a plea bargain. He's testifying against McVeigh in exchange for no jail time for knowing about the bomb, but saying nothing to authorities. Tom?
Thanks very much, Roger O'Neill in Denver tonight. In Fort Davis, Texas tonight, progress is being reported in negotiations with the so-called Republic of Texas militia. However, dozens of law enforcement officials still surround the heavily armed compound. When NBC Nightly News continues in a moment, the latest problems for the Kennedy family. Also tonight, imagine 18-wheelers rumbling through your neighborhood at all hours of the day and night.
They know that these are interstate trucks that really ought to be on interstate highways, not on local streets.
Why are the big rigs invading the suburbs? We'll have some answers for you. NBC News in depth tonight. Beyond the 63-year-old new mother, the pleasures and pitfalls of parenting later in life. As more stories of atrocities continue to emerge from the civil war in the Central African nation of Zaire, there also is some hope tonight there could be a negotiated end to the conflict. The U.S. envoy Bill Richardson, after meeting with President Mobutu and the rebel leader Laurent Kabila, announced the two will meet face-to-face for the first time probably within the next few days. In this country, State Department spokesman Nick Burns has made it very clear the U.S. is especially concerned about the growing refugee crisis in the southern part of the country.
The situation of the refugees is horrific in every way. A lack of medical attention, a lack of food, a failure to be protected from the whims of soldiers who are patrolling in the area. And it's a disastrous situation now.
Burns also acknowledged today the growing number of reports that rebel soldiers have been invading refugee camps and randomly killing thousands of innocent men, women, and children. In Massachusetts tonight, where politics still is a serious game of hardball and a new generation of the Kennedy political dynasty is poised to take over, a series of revelations about the personal lives of two Kennedy brothers has threatened to derail both their careers. Here's NBC's Lisa Myers.
He seems to be perfectly positioned to be the next governor of Massachusetts. Charismatic, popular, with a name that remains political magic. But for Congressman Joe Kennedy, son of Robert Kennedy, the last 10 days have been a nightmare. Headlines scream of clouds over Camelot. To Kennedy, it must feel more like a tornado. Turn on the TV and his first wife, Sheila, is everywhere, promoting her book, protesting her ex-husband's effort to get the Catholic Church to annul their 12-year marriage.
To say we were never married there is really taking away something that we both agreed to and agreed to share.
She says he had a temper, called her a nobody. Last week, Joe Kennedy publicly apologized.
I am terribly sorry for any of the mistakes that I made in our relationship.
But it got even worse. The Boston Globe reported that Joe's brother and political confidant, Michael, allegedly had an affair with a 14-year-old babysitter. That allegation is now being investigated by a district attorney.
I love my brother very, very much and very dearly, and that I think at the moment that's all I should probably say.
In Massachusetts, seeing the Kennedy legacy tarnished by scandal involving women is hardly new. But so far, Joe Kennedy seems to be paying a higher than usual price. His approval ratings have plummeted, especially among women. Conservative Howie Carr hears it all on his radio talk show.
Kennedy men apparently don't know how to treat women with respect. And I think women in Massachusetts are finally starting to realize that.
Joe Kennedy says no matter what, he's proud of his family.
It's a big family. You know, there's always going to be a few little problems along the way, and this one might not be such a little one for everybody.
Still, he insists his current troubles will not affect any race for governor next year. After all, even weakened by scandal, a Kennedy running in Massachusetts has always been unbeatable. Lisa Myers, NBC News, Washington.
When we come back, NBC News in depth. A new mother at 63, fathers in their 70s now, is parenting late in life, a trend for the millennium. First from CNBC, let's take a look at what happened on Wall Street. It was another banner day, the Dow closing just shy of the all-time one-day point gain. NBC News in depth tonight, starting a family, a major commitment in anyone's life, but what about having children when most of your colleagues and friends are thinking more about retirement? Several high-profile examples of this have made the news lately, but they're also part of a trend. In fact, between 1980 and 1991, the number of babies born to women over 40 more than doubled, from 24,000 to 54,000. And for older men, the numbers are much higher as more divorced older men remarry younger women. All of this leads to some unique challenges for older parents and their children. We begin our in-depth reporting tonight with NBC's George Lewis.
8 years ago, Tom and Margaret Ludden of Mission Viejo, California, were one of the first couples in the country to bear a child using an egg obtained from another woman implanted inside Margaret. Like the 63-year-old mother now in the news, Margaret lied about her age, telling the fertility clinic she was 43, when actually she was 50.
I love the pregnancy. I would like to have another one.
Beep, beep. Older couples with young kids, part of a national trend. And some experts contend that the children of these older couples are, for the most part, fortunate.
I think older parents really want to be parents. I think they have worked hard to be parents. There is a wisdom I think we all get over time, and I think there's an enthusiasm to participate in that child's life that's very different from a young parent.
But for older parents, there are some nagging questions. How do you plan for your own retirement and your child's education all at the same time? And will you live long enough to see your kids grow up? The Bergers of Los Angeles have a 2-year-old son, Jordan. Marcia Berger is 44, her husband Harold, 58.
Right before Jordan was born, I took out a large life insurance policy. I know he and his mother are going to be okay, and we are.
The worries about older parents dying are shared by the kids. 49-year-old Mimi Toberman hears that from her 2 sons.
Like all of a sudden one will come up to me and say, I wish you were younger. And I'd say, why? And they said, because Josh said it not long ago. He says, because I'm scared you won't be here.
Now, at age 59, Margaret Ludden says she has few qualms about being an older parent. But her 60-year-old husband, Tom, is not so enthusiastic.
I have an 8-year-old. Am I too old for that? I don't know. My wife's not too old for that. And she's the one that's taking care of him.
When 8-year-old Charlie goes camping with the Cub Scouts, it's Mom who goes with him while Dad stays at home.
I used to be frustrated because I couldn't get him to participate in some of these things. He didn't want to. And I thought, well, Margaret, you're enjoying it and you're having fun. Just go ahead and enjoy it.
For advice to fellow older parents, try to stay in good physical shape so you can keep up with the kids. George Lewis, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Now the view from an older dad, one who started his second family with a second wife at the age of 50. Jerry Della Femina, a 61-year-old entrepreneur with children 8 and 11 now. His take on later fatherhood in his own words.
Some people who are 70 who should have more children, and maybe there's some people in their 20s who shouldn't have any children ever. The fact is it's not age-related. It's what you feel, how you relate to children, how much you love them. I think the key word for older fathers is attention. Yes. You really pay attention to these children, and sometimes you would, with my old children, I thought I was paying attention, but I wasn't because I was somewhere else. Every one of my 5 children has had a different father. I was just 5 different people. My oldest child grew up with a father who was really working very hard, broke, looking for ways to make any kind of money, and now I've got an 11-year-old, and she sees a different father. I am now what I always used to think a father was, but I couldn't make it because I didn't have the time. I am lucky because I'm getting to see the world again through a child's eyes. Having a young child just adds an energy to you. And I see friends of mine who are my age who really, at this stage of their life, have quit. Their child is a set of golf clubs. I really like the idea of starting all over again. It's rejuvenating. It's wonderful to say it's time to have another child.
Still ahead tonight, the power of volunteers in Schwarzkopf's America. And when we come back, 18-wheelers taking a detour through suburbia, wrecking the road, shattering the peace and quiet of your neighborhood. From the flooded Plain States tonight, finally, some good news. The mayor of Grand Forks, North Dakota, is handing out checks to families who have been flooded out. And this money came from an anonymous donor who said she wanted to help the victims put their lives back together. The mayor wouldn't say exactly how much each family is getting or give any hints as to who the donor is, except to say, she is our angel. For city dwellers, it's a common sound these days, the ear-splitting roar of trucks, big trucks, traveling down their streets. But now those 18-wheelers are invading what used to be the peace and quiet of suburban America. More from NBC's Robert Hager.
Shake, rattle, and roll. Welcome to once quiet Princeton, New Jersey, where 900 trucks a day now rumble through. Mayor Marvin Reed complains.
And it's particularly bad for the residents in the middle of the night. When the 3 o'clock in the morning, you've got an 18-wheeler coming in and it's vibrating your house and you're trying to sleep.
Roanoke, Texas, awaiting construction of a bypass. Nina Fangy's afraid.
I wouldn't want to have kids out here playing because they wouldn't have time to stop.
Santee, California, where 2,800 trucks a day use Mission Gorge Road. Store owner Michael Cole.
The big trucks, a lot of times, they come through here very fast, and I've seen one actually drop a trailer. It's pretty scary.
The federal government reports that over the last decade, the number of trucks using streets in cities and towns has grown twice as fast as the number using interstate highways. It's happening as manufacturing plants move to the suburbs and small towns. Distribution centers move as well. And the improving economy spurs business at the superstores and malls to which they deliver in almost every neighborhood. 80% of what consumers demand, food, clothing, and other goods, comes by truck. But at a cost in congestion, noise, and air pollution, and $3.3 billion in local government expenses to patrol trucks and repair the damage they cause to streets. Joe Stowers, transportation consultant.
In terms of pavement damage, that's where the truck's cost responsibility is very high. It can be as high as one truck causing as much damage as 10,000 cars when it comes to the wear on the surface of the pavement.
In Princeton, residents posted signs on their lawns, wanted to ban the biggest trucks. Resident Sandy Solomon.
It's like someone carrying a heavy bomb through town. You know that sooner or later it's going to go off.
But the most the state was willing to do was reduce the speed limit for trucks in Princeton. The mayor vows to keep fighting.
It's that basic feeling that we've got to keep control of our lives and we can't just let the trucks roll over us.
Small-town America against 80,000-pound 18-wheelers. An uneven fight the towns are losing. Robert Hager, NBC News, Washington.
We'll be right back. After that volunteer summit in Philadelphia, it is important to remember the volunteer work that's already being done in this country, much of it a model for programs yet to come. Tonight on Schwarzkopf America, the General tells us about a very ambitious and a successful program in Arizona.
Job loss or divorce, domestic violence or unexpected debt. Too often, any of these can be a crisis that pushes a family to a place they never expected to be.
I would stay on people's couches. I didn't finish high school. I was just on my way, headed down the wrong path, and I got pregnant.
Good afternoon, Homeward Bound.
Here in Phoenix, there's a way to help the families through their crisis and turn the homeless into homeowners.
About 25% of our families do purchase homes.
Dr. Pamela Martin has molded Homeward Bound into a partnership of government, private companies, and volunteers. And how many of these houses do you have?
We have about 150 of them, and the majority of them were purchased with government funds. And then every one of the families has a sponsor, a local volunteer group that works with that family hands-on.
They gave me this beautiful home, helped me find a job.
They set me up on a budget. Now we're, going to own a house.
There we go. For 3 months, these Salt River Company employees have dedicated their weekends to get this fixer-upper ready for a family.
I'd like to think if I was in trouble, somebody would be willing to help me out, and that's pretty much why I do it.
You're even putting flowers in the front yard.
Yes, and it will look brand new.
It'll look like
Someone's going to be very lucky.
It'll be a real home, won't it?
Yes.
To qualify for a home, the family must have children, and the adults must work and stay off welfare.
This is a 3-bedroom unit.
Soon the Morales family will have a home, and Pamela Martin is sure they will succeed.
Because you have a team behind you, and very importantly, volunteers. Volunteers who are like your aunt, your uncle, your grandparents.
Hi, baby.
Only 2 years ago, there was no place the Wolf children, Jessica and Ryan, could do their homework. Now they have a place to call home.
Very good.
It's just the greatest thing in the world that's ever happened to me, or my sister, or my mom. It's just the greatest thing in the world.
That's nightly news for this Tuesday. Don't forget Dateline NBC tonight at 10, 9 Central. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
More Americans watch NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw than any other evening.